Okay, guys, welcome to another WNBF UK podcast with myself, Leon Mitchell, WNBF UK Pro. And today's guest, we got the one, the only, Martin Lamont in the building. Martin, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm really well, buddy. I'm really well. I'm ecstatic to have you on the show and to talk through your journey, man. It's going to be an amazing chat.
I'm excited to get on.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. So, Martin, let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about, who is Martin Lamont? Come on, give us that background, buddy.
Bodybuilding background is, I had a bit of a strange introduction into bodybuilding, really. I was working just as a kind of leisure attendant in a leisure centre back home. And it was the boss at the gym at the time was a bit of an old school bodybuilder. So basically I was eating too much, drinking too much, partying at the weekends, the way a 19-year-old normally does. And he was like, oh, why don't you come and train with me one day? So I thought, I can do that easy enough. And basically he just took me into the gym and nearly killed me a few times. It was a bit of a baptism of fire to training. But it kind of lit the fire for like me in terms of going to the gym and enjoying training and how it made me feel outside that. So basically I trained with him for a few years. That was from when I was 19, maybe till early 20s anyway. And probably a couple of years down the line, he was like, well, why don't you just take the plunge and go and do a competition? At the point, I'm like, me do that, not a chance. At this point I was training, but I was still doing the weekend stuff as well, having a lot more to drink than I should, eating crap.
Enjoying life, right? Enjoying life, right?
Yeah, exactly. So eventually I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I'm one of these people, if I commit to something, I'm 100% in. So committed to doing my first show, about, must have been a good 9 months prep maybe for it. Never really had much idea what I was doing. The usual, really low carbs, hammer and cardio, everything all at once. It was a bit of a struggle. Finished third in a novice class in the Scottish in my first year, but it kind of lit the fire for me a bit. Went down to the British. This would have been 2013 was my first competitive season. So went down to the British, got absolutely hammered. Like they don't place it beyond the sixth, but I think if they did, I was dead last, but it was a total eye-opener as to where the standard lay. Just the difference between doing a Scottish qualifier to a British Championships. The jump in standard is incredible. So did that, really enjoyed it, loved the process, and I enjoyed how I felt by dieting, if you know what I mean. Like, dieting's a tough process, but when I had that comparison of what I felt like when I was out partying at weekends, eating takeaways all the time, I felt so much better. I felt like what 100% should feel like. So I said, just lit the fire in terms of bodybuilding.
Nice. Okay, man. That's a great way of getting into bodybuilding, and I think a lot of us can relate to that story. To be honest, often influenced by someone just externally, kind of seeing our progress and just kind of saying, hey, why don't you give it a go? So take us back to some of your early inspirations for bodybuilding. Obviously, there would have been some people that you would have felt, man, what an amazing physique. I'd love to have something like that, or be able to kind of bring a package which was very similar. So who was your early inspirations?
Oh, it's so early to say, but I mean, that first year I did the Scottish was 2013. At that time, you all know Andrew Chappelle was quite a big influence in the WNBF at the time. Obviously seeing him competing with the likes of Rob Waterhouse as well, David Kay, obviously, we were just incredible natural physiques. In terms of the wider spectrum of bodybuilding, obviously I was Jay Cutler was just incredible back when I was just getting into the sport. It was likes of Jay Cutler at the Olympia level. Later on from that, though, in my eyes, probably the most complete physique there's been in bodybuilding since has been Phil Heath, dominated for so many years. But in terms of influences in bodybuilding, I said my old boss Mike, bodybuilder himself back in the day, he's the one that kind of brought it up to that. I'm from Stranraer, which is a very small corner in Scotland, and it was as if like he brought bodybuilding to that area.
Oh, nice. Nice.
and it's a tiny small town. I've since moved up to Glasgow.
Yeah.
But it's a tiny small town in the corner of Scotland, but it's produced Scottish champions, world champion bodybuilders, British champion bodybuilders, all from a tiny area in Scotland. And that's all down to Mike, to be totally honest with you. He brought that sport, and that very niche sport, to a small area of Scotland. So yeah, massive influence on myself and many others in the area.
That's good. That's good, man. Yeah, we like those like local heroes that kind of go on to motivate and inspire a generation of people to come through and, you know, push through the sport. So that's really exciting to hear.
Really.
So talk to me about that first prep experience, because I think a lot of people, you know, stepping into or even kind of thinking about competing, are kind of thinking, "Whoa, I've heard about this prep. What does prep actually feel like? What is prep life?" And I mean, your first prep versus your last prep is going to be totally different, right? Because as you go through the prep cycles and do many different preps, you're going to advance the way how you do things, right? So talk to me about that first prep experience.
Right.
How did it go down, Martin?
First prep, I was seeking advice from everywhere. You know, like I'm saying, Mike, my boss, was competed back in the day. There was another guy, 2 or 3 other competitors in Stranraer at the time. So I was asking for advice of everybody. And you know, I was just kind of trying to piece it together myself for help. Everybody was all helping me. But my first prep was very low carbs, little to no carbs.
Yeah.
Went then for a phase towards the end of it where I carb cycled. So I had like 1,000 grams of carbs one day, and then like hardly any for the rest of the week, like little to none for the rest of the week. You know, so I wasn't even directly calorie counting much then. Whereas in subsequent preps, it's all went down towards that route of counting your calories as being your main focal point, and then distributing up your protein, carbs, and fats within that. Whereas the first time I was total novice to the whole thing. It was just like no carbs, lots of carbs one day. It was pretty tough. I don't know how I ever done it again, having done it that way, because how I felt when I was doing it that way, it was horrible. Anybody that's done a low to zero carb diet, it's not nice. So that was my first prep. Second time round, I competed again in 2015. In that gap between 13 and 15, I'd done my PT qualification, done my level 2 gym instructor qualification. I've educated myself a little bit. So 2015 was a lot of more higher carb approach. It was still a bit more what you would call bro, if that makes sense. You know, it's very chicken and rice orientated, but it was a lot higher in carbs. So I felt so much better.
Yeah.
More energy in the gym, training was better, but also found took you a lot longer to get in shape by maintaining a higher caloric intake and maintaining higher carbs.
Yes.
So as a result of that, my first couple of competitions I did in 2015, I was miles off the pace. You know, my condition was nowhere near point. But hammered down towards the end of the 2015 season, I won my first bodybuilding competition, which was the BNBF Midlands qualifier. So won that, but again went to the British, got my ass handed to me a bit. But again, just push me on.
Yeah.
Since then, I've competed in 2017, 2018, and 2021. Nice. So that's basically been all my seasons that I've done as a competitor. So it's quite a few now. So I see myself as quite an experienced competitor. And everyone since has always been a much higher carbohydrate approach. 2021 has probably been, in fact, definitely been the highest calories I've maintained throughout.
I think you hit the nail on the head, especially that with obviously like, you know, your first year's approach, you're kind of just seeking information from everyone, right? Because you're kind of like, one person will have this approach, another person will have that approach, and you're just like a sponge, right? Because you're getting into the sport. So you're like, oh, that big guy said do this, so that must be gospel. Oh, that other bigger guy that was bigger than the other guy said to do that. So then before you know it, you're like, and you're trying multiple things, right? Yeah. So when you actually land up on stage, there was no solid approach. It was just a combination of different people's, you know, advice.
Exactly. And it's also made me realize something as well that I've probably been more acutely aware of since I've started helping other competitors, is people that prep or do prep assisted compared to people that prep or do prep naturally. They can take very widely varying approaches. I often feel that people that are assisted get away with a lot more nutritionally.
Yeah.
And have the higher calories much higher, and they can also drop them much lower for a longer period of time without sacrificing muscle.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think that's the biggest thing as well. So a lot of people from the outside, when they don't understand the difference between a non-assisted athlete and an assisted athlete, and they see two different approaches, but they don't know the backstory, right?
yes.
So they just think, okay, cool. This guy on YouTube saying that he consumes over 6,000 calories, okay, but he looks shredded as hell. But there's a big difference. So I think as you know, people coming into competing and prepping for the first time, it's all about, you know, making sure that you validate your sources. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Make sure
that's exactly it.
From the relevant people within a similar field that you're going into. So if you're a natural, look for your naturals. Some of the pros that have done it for many years and they are naturals. You know what I mean? And if you're going on the assisted side, look that way, kind of thing.
Exactly. And you said there, the guy that's walking around shredded eating 6,000 calories. He could well be 6'5" and walking around shredded at 98 kilos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're sitting there 5'2", you're not going to be able to eat 6,000 calories and remain shredded.
It's just mad out there. But I think, you know, there's certainly lessons to be learned from your first prep all the way through to your last prep. And even for myself, it's that continuous learning journey and understanding, you know, the smallest things every step and just documenting that as well.
That's exactly it. I mean, I don't think although since all my other preps have been that much higher carbohydrate diet approach, none have been the same. You know, the amount of cardio I've done has varied massively from year to year. I said my food choices has varied a little bit from year to year. Everyone's always evolved and changed. It's about learning every year and seeing what you can take from that as a positive and what you find didn't really work, and take that into your next year. That's the only way you can improve. And bodybuilding as a sport is about continuous improvement.
100%. And obviously you got a young family yourself, right? So how did you manage prep with having a young family, especially of recent, because you got a little girl. How old is she, if you don't mind me asking?
2. She turned 2 last week.
Okay, so she's 2. So you would have done some preps throughout those various different stages of her life, right?
Yeah, well, because I took a break from 2018, 2021, this was my first year prepping with a family, really. It's a lot more challenging than I'd probably thought. I mean, the first, you know yourself, when you do a prep, there's stages. The first stage, when you're just beginning, you've still got a bit of body fat. Your energy levels aren't too bad. You're not hammering cardio. You're not getting crazy lean. Your energy levels are still good. Your hormone balances are still good. So the vast majority of the prep was absolutely fine. But what I did find, and it probably hit me quite hard, was the last 3 or 4 months, when from really, obviously I did the WNBF show as my primary one this year. The month running into it was quite tough. And then you obviously had the time between there and going to Vegas, where you're in shape, you're lean, you're still having to push, but you've not got much in the tank. What I found with that is I'm a morning guy. So in the mornings, my energy levels are great.
Yes.
My little girl Zara, in the evenings, she's bouncing about wanting to play, and I'm just, you know, so it's like really try kind of summon energy to be energetic dad at night, as well as, I mean, I'm lucky in the sense that she's a very good sleeper. I hear some stories about kids that just do not sleep, and I don't know if I would actually have made it through my prep if I didn't get sleep.
You're a lucky guy, buddy. Lucky guy. But that's good. I think, you know, there's a lot of people out there, and I think when it comes to prep and even considering even to go on stage, there's a lot of things you need to take into consideration. And family is one of those, and the people around you, right? And even your work environment, because I think sometimes when we do prep is for ourselves, right? It's for us, right?
Exactly.
But it affects so many people around us. So we've got to be taking into consideration, you know, their thoughts and their feelings as well. Because, you know, going into work, your mood shifts are going to be shifting depending on where your energy levels are that day, you know what I mean? So bring people along the journey, but educate them along the way is really a great way of getting through prep. And I think especially having a young family as well, that's going to be, you know, you've got to balance it. You've got to find the time to juggle it.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I wrote something similar after my roundup of the World Championship post. Bodybuilding's a selfish sport, but it's about sacrifices. I'm not a bodybuilder that will bitch and moan that I don't get to eat a burger. Poor me, I don't get to eat burgers. That's my choice. You know, I'm choosing to do this as a sport. I'm choosing not to have takeaways at the weekends. That's my choice. But what it isn't, it's not my choice of my wife or my little girl. you know, and they miss out on a lot of things because you're dieting and because you're competing. That's not their choice. That's something that they are willing to live with for you. So it's a sacrifice they are willing to make for you, which is, it's tough at times because you see them maybe missing out on things because of the choice you're making to compete. But as you said, it's a selfish sport. You've got to kind of be self-motivated and almost self-obsessed to a point to get to that level.
Yeah.
When you mentioned work there as well, I'm very lucky in the sense where I'm a gym manager. The gym that I work in is a bodybuilding gym. They understand, they get it. They've been extremely supportive of me. So a big shout out to Pro Life Fitness. As I said, they've been massive supporters of me.
Nice.
In terms of the sport as a whole as well.
See, I think that's really nice, especially when you're working in an environment, again, where people understand it. It just makes it a lot more easier just to stay focused on your end goals. I think sometimes some people get it, some people just don't get it. You get a lot of questions along the way, like, oh, why are you starving yourself, or all of those kind of things. And you're like, oh, you got to explain that again. You know,
my previous job was it was much more of a kind of higher end health club environment. And one of the members actually spoke to another member of the management team because they were genuinely concerned about my health. The guy's lovely as well. He's such a nice member. But had a word with one of the other managers because he was genuinely worried about my health because my
they raised a red flag on your welfare, buddy.
I know, it's incredible.
The members have definitely got your back. So, buddy, talk to me about, you know, the lead up into the WNBF UK Supernatural show. What made you decide that you wanted to compete in that show?
Oh, man, it's just the WNBF as a federation globally. You know, that's what kind of drew me there. I've previously competed with other federations. I've not been tied down to one. You know, I've kind of bounced about 2 or 3 different ones. But when I seen WNBF UK, I knew that's what I wanted to do. WNBF as a global brand, they're huge. You know, like they rotate their world championships around major cities in America, which I knew was my goal going into it. Before I selected WNBF as my priority, I knew that would be my goal, is to qualify for the world championships.
Nice.
When I seen WNBF was in Vegas, that kind of sealed the deal a little bit in that sense.
I think it sealed the deal with a lot of people. Everyone's like, oh, you know what?
Absolutely.
It's been a crappy year, but hey, there seems like a golden ticket floating at the WNBF UK, and everyone's launched for it. Talk us about the WNBF UK show and how it went down for you and how you found it.
I absolutely loved it. To be honest, I spoke to Andrew and Steph were doing some posing clinics in my gym where I work in. So I've been chatting to them a little bit about the setup and whatnot, and it's just got me dead excited about what they planned for the WNBF and how they wanted to grow. So obviously the first year around, it's a gamble for anybody to set up a new federation in bodybuilding, let alone given the current climate with COVID and restrictions and things like that. But so I was excited going into it. But I went down there. I said my family came down with me. Had my mother-in-law down as well, so they kind of entertained Zara while I was competing.
Oh, wow.
Take a bit of stress
Hold on. Rewind. You brought your mother-in-law to a posing session. Wow.
Yeah, man. Honestly, she's a godsend, man. Absolutely. If I could have afforded to bring her to Vegas, I would have brought her to Vegas as well. So she was able to entertain my little girl Zara while I competed. My wife gets probably more stressed than I do on competition day. So if she's not having to worry about Zara, that's one less thing for her as well. Went down, stayed for a few days. The venue itself was incredible. I felt for sometimes the guys that were helping out, because competitors don't help them, man. Just be where you need to be. That's all we need to do as competitors. Be where you need to be.
Can I just hold my hand up? I think I was one of the guys when they say, can all the competitors come back?
Were you one of the ones that were chasing?
Yeah, it was one of me.
I said the Crescent Theatre, and then when I went on, the staging and the setup, it looked just so professional. You know, that's one word I would describe the WNBF UK, would just be professional. Everything about it, you felt like a professional athlete, even though we were in the amateur classes, or you were at the time, not anymore. But we're in as an amateur sport, but you walk in and it's professionalism from the first moment of weighing in and checking in the morning to the presentation towards the end. You know, absolute professionalism.
Nice, nice. And what? Just remind the people that are listening now. What class did you do again?
I did middle height class. I did at the men's open bodybuilding. It's the one you won.
Yeah, you see, okay, so this is the thing. So again, I think it's really interesting because there's, everyone's always thinking about, okay, where do I fit? Where do I, what class do I enter, etc. How did you make that decision? Was you just already floating around that kind of middle class, or was you kind of?
Because they did height based for the British, my height was my height, but I was at when I'd spoken to Andrew about it before, they weren't sure if they were going to do 2 heights or 3 heights, depending on the number of competitors. So the split with 3 heights, I was one of the shorter ones in the middle height class. So at least with height though, it's preset. You can make yourself taller or shorter on the day. Yeah. So in terms of body weight is irrelevant. You just got to go in and make yourself the best bodybuilder you can be to try and be competitive in that class. So yeah, as I said, that's
because one of the things that a lot of people that I talk to, because a lot of people just do multiple different federations, and there's definitely different ways in which you can enter different classes. Some of them are height, some of them are weight, and it's kind of hard to if you're floating in between different federations, to find yourself, okay, at the right point of, what everyone's looking for, you know what I mean? So some people are looking for, okay, cool, you're going to be determined by the height. Some of them are going to be determined by your weight. And then before you know it, you've just done a whole season of mixed classes because there's different requirements, right? So did you feel like that using the height kind of worked to your advantage and kind of put you in the right place where you needed to be? Or would you have thought, okay, cool, the weight maybe just a bit better because it might put me in a balanced class?
It's a bit of both. I mean, the height was perfect for where I was at that moment in the season. It meant that I just focused on being the best bodybuilder I could be.
Yes.
I didn't look at it and think, right, I need to drop X amount of weight. Or if you're perhaps thinking, I could maybe go in a little bit fuller because I've got a bit more weight I can give away. It was just a case of forget about body weight. It's just all about how you look in the mirror.
I think that's an interesting point that you raised there, because I think a lot of people just really do kind of get distracted from the overall goal of just bringing the best version of you, right? If you're there determined by, okay, cool, I need to make this number, you're going to need to sacrifice something if you're not quite around that number, right? Whereas when you got the height, your height, as you said, is your height, right? You can't do nothing else about that. But what you can bring alongside that is the best package that you can bring.
That's exactly it.
So I think that's a great.
And I'm going to totally contradict myself soon enough once we start talking about the worlds.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously you've done the Supernaturals show, got an invite to go to Vegas. How did that invite come around? So, tell us how it felt, when you got the invite, to you accepting it and then you making plans for that.
It was not how you would picture it.
Come on, tell us.
Top 3 got an automatic invite to the Worlds. I didn't finish top 3 at the British. I was 5th, I think. Yes, Steve Hall just beat me to the 4th spot, so I was 5th place. Didn't know that at the time. I just knew I wasn't top 3. So I was a little bit disappointed with my own performance, to be honest, on the day. I thought I could have been, I knew I could have been better on the day. So I was a bit annoyed at my own performance. And it was the next morning. Obviously, I'd had that night to kind of come to terms with not qualifying, not achieving my goal. Did the usual Instagram message post saying, season's done, didn't quite do what I'd wanted to do, is what it is, but it was an incredible middleweight or middle height class. I did say that in the post anyway. It was insane, the level of that class. I mean,
100%, man. Big up all the guys that was in that class, man. It was an epic lineup, man.
Frightening. I said in the post as well, it was easily the strongest class I've been in as a bodybuilder. I mean, yourself won the class. You went on to then win the overall, take the pro card. Absolutely nailed it. But it was the next morning, so I was at the buffet breakfast, ready to go to town.
As you do post show, right?
Got a message on Instagram. It was Andy saying that they'd spoken to Bob from the WNBF and they'd been given the green light to invite the top 5 from that class because it was such an exceptional class on the day. And my initial response was, nah, I was shit. I wasn't good enough. I don't deserve it. I'm not going. So that was my initial mindset. It was that I wasn't good enough on the day. I'm not going to be good enough in the Worlds.
Yeah.
It's only 3 weeks difference. That's it. So nah, she said thanks, but no thanks. Like, I appreciate it. Long drive back up to Scotland from Birmingham. Initially, we were going to go for a takeaway that night. You know, the usual day after competition eats.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I got to maybe 15 miles outside, and I says to my wife, I said, can we maybe give the takeaway a miss tonight? And she just kind of looked at me and went, yeah, okay. Obviously, she could see the cold going around in my head. Had the discussion, and I was like, this could be my only shot to ever compete at a world finals. Anything could happen in bodybuilding, could get injured, just not be good enough next year round. So I had a little look into it. I seen that it flipped to weight classes at the Worlds as well.
Yeah.
So basically 72 kilo was the cutoff for the lightweights. I thought, I'm 74 just now. If I could drop 2 kilo and get into that lightweight class, I'd be very competitive, I thought, in my mind anyway. So eventually I had the discussion with her, my wife. Ultimately, we'd agreed to go on a family holiday. So I needed her agreement to go to Vegas. So I said, right, we can make a full family holiday of it. We'll stay for a few days afterwards. We'll do the competition. Basically, it's on you. You've sacrificed a lot for me this year. If you want to do this, we're doing it. If not, we'll go somewhere else. So eventually we thought about it for ages, a sleepless night and everything. And we decided to take the plunge and go for it. In hindsight, it's what best decision I've ever made. But at the time, you know, I was in, it was the bodybuilder ego had taken a bit of a pounding because I didn't place top 3 at the British. You know, in my head, I'm like, I wasn't good enough. So I'm not going to be good enough in 3 weeks. But ultimately, that dig I had to give to drop those 2 kilo to make it in at the lightweights made a massive difference to my physique. Huge, huge difference.
Nice.
So, yeah.
So, guys, quick tip that he just gave you: ask your missus permission. If you're in a committed relationship, get the permission from the missus first. So, Martin, talk to us about a little bit of what you had to do to kind of get yourself ready for the Worlds, because you said that you had to drop 2 kilos, right? So, what was the approach? You know, how did you plan it out, and how did you make it happen, buddy?
Well, I say I dropped 2 kilos. I think it was 1.5 kilos I had to drop. So I must have been 73.5. But in my head, I thought I need to be 2 kilo lighter to be safe at that weight. You know how flying can affect your body weight and whatnot.
Yes.
Weighing in early, didn't know weigh-in times for the Worlds, things like that. I thought I would probably need to be a pound lighter than I thought I'd need to be just to be safe. But anyway, this year I have been working with a coach for the first time as well. So it was Peter McDougall, who I've competed with numerous times before. But he owns a gym, the weights gym, out in Cambuslang near Glasgow. So that's where I've trained. I've known Peter for years. And he agreed this year to come on and take me on as a client and help me guide me through my prep. So having him as well has been invaluable in the sense of having a family as well. Every year up until then, I've done my own prep. But this time round, it allowed me the mental space to be a dad as well, think about other people, as opposed to just constant thinking about your diet, thinking about your own training, thinking about this, thinking about that. Basically took me out of my own head a little bit.
Nice.
So had a chat with him. We came up with a plan. Dropped my calories by, I think it was like, it wasn't anything drastic, maybe a couple of hundred a day, 200 to 300 a day for the last 3 weeks. And adding in, all I'd done up to this stage was 2 or 3 10-minute hit cardio sessions per week. So I wasn't hammering cardio at any stage through prep. So it gave me a lot left to give in that sense. So basically just hammered hit cardio and dropped my calories by a few hundred a day. And the weight just absolutely dropped off me after that.
Wow. That's amazing. You just simply made a small addition to kind of what you was doing. Nothing too detrimental, you know what I mean? Just a small addition just made a huge difference and got you where you needed to get to Vegas, right?
That's exactly it. And it's something I've always said to people that are looking to do a prep as well. Like, don't start by dropping your calories down to 2,500. You don't need to. If you drop body fat on 3,000 calories, eat 3,000 calories.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't give any more than you need to give at that time, because you always need somewhere else to go.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Everyone always thinks, okay, the go-to tool is just drop the calories drastically, and then, you know, the weight should just literally just drop,
Yeah,
right? And you got to think there's other ways of being sensible with your approach, right? So
exactly.
that's why, go on.
Prep's a long process as well. It's all
Mhm.
about seeing it through to the end of that process.
Yeah.
You maybe won't do that if you give absolutely everything in the first couple of months. You'll maybe be absolutely spent on the whole thing by halfway through.
Yeah, no, man, that's a real invaluable insight there. And tell us about the. Obviously, you said you got a coach and stuff like that. Did you feel that, you know, that's something that everyone should pretty much kind of have an experience of? You know, as much as sometimes, you know, we might have the knowledge of kind of a health and fitness background, but then sometimes we might just want just the extra bit of help, you know, just to kind of take that weight off, and then we can just focus on the task in hand, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably freed me up mentally more than anything else. You know, it's just taking me out my own head a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I've said all my preps have been different, the two most similar were probably 2017 and 2018 were the two most similar. So I think in my head after that, I'm like, well, how am I going to make the next step?
Yeah.
If I'm perhaps repeating the same mistakes.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree. You know, so tell us about the world, man. How did it go down at the Worlds for you? Because obviously it was an amazing day for you, right? I was
It's incredible.
proud. So yeah. So how did you feel on the day, buddy? Like, what was your thoughts going into that show? What was your thoughts on the stage? And yeah, tell us all about the Worlds.
Yeah, well, I've said to everybody since I came back as well, it's like an incredible setup for the Worlds. The buzz. I was a bit annoyed that you had to stay in the venue hotel. I was kind of looking at different hotels around about because I took my family. I thought, try and find ones a bit more family friendly. But part of the contractual thing is that you've got to stay in the venue hotel, which was sound.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we did though, because it was bodybuilding central in Vegas, wasn't it?
100%, man. It was the place to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you're walking around the foyer and there was just WNBF Spain, Indonesia, Canada, US, every country you can imagine. It was just bodybuilders from all walks of life.
Yeah.
It was an amazing environment, and it's just an amazing atmosphere it created as well in the whole hotel.
Indeed.
So obviously I had all that. It was just an incredible atmosphere, professional setup.
Yeah.
All the meetings, so that all the athletes were on the same page. They knew where they had to be, knew what they were doing. I made it into the lightweight class. I should probably follow up. So I weighed in about, it was in pounds, so I don't know the exact conversion with it, but I'm sure it was like 71.5 or something like that, 71 kilo, which is where I was hoping to be with it. So yeah, made it into the lightweight class. I was in the lineup with 7 other competitors. When I was on stage, it was probably the hardest I've had to work on stage. I was on there for a long time.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with the WNBF. They like to make guys work. On the plane, I remember on my way over that I was looking at some of the YouTube videos and just thinking, man, look at the length of this video. And that's just on the mandatories, you know what I mean? I was like, wow, they're going to make everyone work.
Yeah, everyone certainly had to work anyway. I mean, one of the good things as well with being across as the part of the British team, we did a bit of posing practice the day before. Obviously, we were involved in that as well, so we were able to stand next to each other, do a bit of posing. That helped massively as well. You know, it just helps iron out a few tweaks of the poses that you might want to make. And also, it brought me to mind of something Andrew told me months ago. It was a breathing technique to stop losing my abs basically through the posing. So I was trying to do that while I was on stage, and I found it kind of restricted my breathing a bit. It made me hold my abs much better. But also meant I was gassed. I came off that stage, I was just gasping for breath.
Man, I don't know about you, but I'm telling you, backstage for me was a great experience as well. Just seeing all the different athletes from around the world, just all the different types of physiques. And sometimes we kind of lose track of what the rest of the world's doing because we're just so in our UK bubble, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
We're not thinking about what WNBF Spain are doing or WNBF Italy, or you know what I mean? We're just.
I want to know what WNBF Spain's doing, man. They're incredible. See that professional lineup, the lightweights from Spain were just insane.
Yeah.
I remember doing my weigh-in, and obviously you took you into a room to do the weigh-in.
Yeah.
And there was a Spanish boy with me, and he got stripped off to do his weigh-in, and I just remember thinking, shit. And then he was asked his class, and he was like, oh, lightweights. And I'm like, oh, no. It was all professional lightweight. Oh, thank God for that. This guy was insane. And I think he was the guy that went on to win the lightweight class that year. I can't remember his name, but I'm sure he won the lightweight class.
I think that's one thing to point out to those that haven't really competed before. Sometimes you do go backstage and, you know, everyone's just keen to find out, okay, who's in my class, who's doing what kind of thing, especially then when you go to the weigh-ins and you just literally, and they say the categories and you're like, oh, he's in my class, you know what I mean? Instantly we chuck that doubt in, but, you know, just go, you know, it's all about just going on stage and just rocking and having fun,
That's
right?
Exactly it. I mean, you'll know yourself when you do a British finals. As soon as you get that list in the morning and you see the names in your class, you know who's good. You know what I mean? You look at the names and you're like, oh, he's good, he's good, he's good. Yeah. Whereas if you see those equivalent names in the world finals, you've not got a clue.
100%. I looked at the list, I was like, huh? Who's that? You know what I mean?
I was the exact same. I just looked at the list and then I watched the pro class and I looked at my list and thought there's a lot of Spanish sounding names there. They could be good.
So how did it feel when you was up there rocking the stage? Because obviously you had all of Team GB out in the crowd. You know, we was there just shouting on, go on, Martin, go on, Martin.
Oh, that was an amazing feeling, man. Yeah. I mean, the venue itself, it was so busy, but the Team GB they were loud, man. You guys were loud.
You put something behind
having that team support and that behind you, because it's something you never get as a bodybuilder.
Yeah, 100%. And it must have been even more special for you having your missus and your little girl there, right? Because then that's a moment that's going to be there forever, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that was when I came off after well, it's strange. I came off after winning my class and I wasn't allowed to leave because of the drug testing. So I had to wait until the overall before I was allowed to go out and celebrate. So it was me and it was Dirk who went on to win the overall. He was the bantamweight winner. We were locked in a room together, basically. We weren't allowed to leave. But when I eventually got outside in the foyer, first thing it was Andrew Chappelle came up to me and he just, congratulations, man, amazing. Your wife and daughter's outside, go celebrate with them and make sure and take photos of this moment. So that's something that always stuck in my head. So when I gave them a big hug and got a few photos and that together, which is just incredible.
That's going to be
one of those things. One of my mates said to me as well that night, he messaged me congratulating me and said, just remember as well, this is your girl Zara's first holiday. It's your first family holiday together as three of you. So take plenty of photos because what a story this is in 10 years' time.
Man, for real, he hit it right on the nail on the head, right, man? What a story indeed, man. That must
exactly
be an epic moment, you know, that you all share together for the rest of your lives. You know what I mean? So talk to me about the drug testing, because obviously that's a little bit of insight for people as well. So obviously you went on to win your class, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, you went on to then doing the overalls, but then you had to then do a drug test, right?
Yeah, well, I've done the polygraph test, so every competitor at the Worlds needs to do that. I didn't need to do my drug test in the end because I didn't win a pro card.
Okay, cool.
So went into the overall, the top three won the pro card. I didn't get into that top three, so I didn't need to do the drug test. But because I've had to do one, they couldn't let me leave the room.
So they just held you in the room.
They just held me in the room until I wasn't prepared for this. I wasn't expecting to go and win. So I had no food, I had no water.
Yeah.
I was shouting on Andrew, who was in the pump-up room, to bring me grapes. So he was like feeding me some grapes just so I had a bit of carbs in me. I wasn't prepared for this.
Man, that's crazy. But man, you had an epic win at the Worlds. You know, from my perspective of being in the crowd with Team GB and just seeing you up there, man, you rocked it hard. You look sharp as nails, man. Those quads. That you get the title Quadzilla, buddy. You know what I mean? Guys, if you haven't seen this guy's stage pictures, go check out his Instagram because his Instagram's got them. His quads are next level. They just got sharper and sharper. I remember sitting in the crowd with Josh Gogan, and we was just simply just saying, my gosh, this guy's got legs. We were just going, the more they kept moving you guys and working you harder, the sharper you looked, and it just got better and better, buddy. So that was a well-deserved win, you know, hands down for you there, man.
You know, that's something I've always found throughout bodybuilding. Everybody's always commented, the more I pose, the better I look. You know, I think it's something that a lot of people maybe can underestimate in terms of how your physique can change just from time on stage. You know, just getting the blood flowing to the muscles where you want them to be, and just flexing hard and posing hard, and how much that can bring through your physique.
100%. And I think, you know, sometimes, you know, I remember actually, I think it was the WNBF UK Supernatural show. One of the helpers around the back was saying to me, you know, don't pump up too hard, because when you go on stage, you're going to work you, right? So you're pumping up too hard, then when you're going to get worked through, it's going to be, you know, a bit pointless. So just kind of, as they keep moving, you keep moving, pose hard, squeeze hard, and you know what, your physique will push through. And I remember speaking to one of the judges at the Worlds, and she kept saying, like, you know, within the first 20 minutes, everyone's physique changed on stage, right? So because they kept working you, right? So again, there's a lot of value in, you know, keep working hard, keep posing hard, and your physique will change on stage, 100%.
That's one of those, when you're talking about pumping up too hard as well, I mean, that's a mistake I've made. You've probably made it yourself. I think every experienced bodybuilder has. See, when I first started, man, I was doing like a full gym session before I went on the stage. You know, you start hitting some poses, and all of a sudden you're cramping in your lats. You can't squeeze your quads because you're going into a cramp. It's like, it's a fine art trying to find out how much to pump up, but not.
Yeah, I think that's, again, it's another part of that missing journey of prep and getting to stage, right? It's like, okay, when I get to this stage, what do I do? Because you got to remember, at the Worlds or some shows, you ain't got your coach there anymore, right? Exactly. It's just you and the other lads. So if you see one guy pumping up hard, you're going to be thinking, oh, mate, he's going in hard. I may need to do that, right? But it's just finding the right balance of what's going to bring out the best in your physique when you hit the stage, right?
And it's so easy to see somebody else in your class pumping up and thinking, should I be doing that? Am I waiting it too late? And a lot of places backstage as well, they don't have mirrors, so you can't really see how you're looking.
That's one of the things I think a key takeaway for some people would be to kind of just make sure you have your resistance bands, make sure you just know a few pump moves that you can do backstage. So just kind of work them into your routine leading into getting into the stage, right? And it will certainly help you when you get backstage. Some people bring their own dumbbells, right?
Yeah.
But there's not always dumbbells.
No. I mean, there's very few federations will be able to carry and do a full gym setup backstage for you, you know. Always, as long as you're prepared in yourself, I mean, that's all you got to worry about.
100%. So, my man, what's next for you? Okay, you chasing that pro card? You taking the off-season route for a little while? Tell us what's the next stage for you?
You know, a pro card isn't something that ever interested me as a bodybuilder. It was possibly because I never ever thought I would be in that conversation.
Okay.
You know, like, and it's not something I'd ever chased in any sense. But this year, in the overall of the Worlds, top 3 got a pro card. Having spoke to the judges afterwards, they had me in 4th. They said it was very tight between me and 3rd. It makes me want that pro card now because it was there. I'm like, right, that's an attainable target for me now. So ultimately, that's going to be the end goal. But short-term goal, I'm just going to try and improve my physique, bring on my shoulders and my upper body a little bit more, try and balance out those quads a bit. But ultimately, I'll be taking a year out anyway. And then the target in the moment is 2023. But I always say bodybuilding, especially at an amateur level, you know, it's got to fit in your life at the time. So basically, I'll see where life is in a year's time. And if I'm ready to hammer into a prep, then 2023 is going to be the target.
Nice, man. I think it sounds like you got it well thought out, and I'm glad the judges gave you that feedback that you needed to kind of get that bite and say, you know what, okay, I might just go for that pro card, because, mate, I think that when you do get it, be well deserved, buddy, because I think you've really got a pro kind of physique there going on there, especially with those legs, man, those quads, guys. No lie, this guy's quads. Sorry.
I gotta have a shout out to, I said, my old boss Mike. These quads are built by him, man. When I first started training, honestly, I would vomit every single leg session for months. Admittedly, my diet was crap at the time. Once my diet sorted out, I stopped vomiting. Who knows? But yeah, that was the level and the intensity we trained legs at, and it's something I've always carried through. Yeah,
that's one thing for me. Like, even when I train legs, man, I just love the intensity and the volume on legs, man. You just get the most out of it, right? So that's all good. So that's all good on that one. So, buddy, what advice would you give to anyone, thinking about stepping on stage, you know, currently going through their second prep, but still a bit unsure of what to do and stuff like that, what advice will come from Martin Lamont? Come on, give us it.
It's hard to put it into a single sound bit for this, to be honest. I mean, anybody that's looking to do their first prep, my advice would be make sure you want to do it. You know, it's going to be tough. You've got to really want it, or you're not going to see it through. There's so many people start a prep, or every year they're always, this is going to be the year. You know, the type. Every year, this is the year I'm going to compete, and then they'll diet for 3 months and think, nah, I'll do it next year. But they'll justify it in their head that they need time to get better. They don't. They just don't want it enough to go through what they need to go through to get there. For anybody that's maybe competed 2 or 3 years, I mean, basically, everyone gets better every year. That's what you've got to focus on, just improving your physique every year. And eventually you will get the rewards. I mean, if you're going into your first or second season and expecting to be in the conversation for British titles, I mean, that's not bodybuilding as a sport. I mean, you've got freaks like Dirk, who won the overall in his first year at the World Finals. So yeah, he's the exception. He's not the rule. You know, for the vast majority of people, bodybuilding's a sport about perseverance almost. You know, every year you will get better. If you focus on just making yourself a better bodybuilder, eventually you will get to the point where you want to be.
Yeah, no, that's a sound advice there, buddy. And I echo that as well. So Martin, thank you so much for coming on today's show, buddy. It's been a pleasure talking to you, finding out a little bit more about who Martin Lamont is, where you come from, where you're going to go next, and just hearing the highs and the lows, buddy. It's been an absolute pleasure. But before you disappear, Martin, let the people know where they can find you on the social medias. What's your handles, buddy?
Mainly I'm through Instagram at the moment. It's martin.lamont.fitness. I'm probably not as active as many people will be on that. Probably showing my age a little bit. I'm a little bit beyond the social media age on that. But yeah, martin.lamont.fitness on Instagram is probably the best place to get me.
Nice. So guys, make sure you follow him and give those quad pictures a like, man, because they certainly deserve those likes, guys. Now, guys, I just want to big up our main sponsors, CMP Nutrition. Can't forget the main sponsors, those guys there. And just remember the WNBF UK for 2022, we got 2 shows lined up, okay? So we got the first timers and the novice one, okay? That is going to be in July, and that's on the 17th of July. So guys, if you're a first timer and you're a novice and you just want to get into kind of getting getting on stage and feeling it out and just testing the waters and getting some great feedback, that would be an ideal show for you. Then we got the big one on the 9th of October, which is the Supernatural show. So guys, that's going to be an epic shutdown shop. So just make sure if you want to join that one, you sign up for that one as well. Okay, so lots of opportunity with the WNBF UK. So don't waste the time, plan ahead, hit the ground and make it happen. Correct, Martin?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to being a part of the WNBF as a stage hand helping out.
Same here, buddy. I just can't wait to see the level of talent. I can already see it coming through with the WNBF UK hashtag that's on Instagram. If you're following that, you'll certainly see the level.
The Supernaturals is insane. I think the second one's going to be even better.
Man, it's going to be epic. So guys, just remember that you can follow the WNBF UK on Instagram and also on YouTube. And also join the community on Facebook as well. So that's where we could discuss the various different shows, any questions you may have. And just shout out us, all right? So thank you for tuning into the WNBF UK podcast. My name is Leon Mitchell, and this guy here is Martin Lamont, and thanks for watching. All right.